As promised, here's our director of scouting, the one and only Craig Button. Craig, Connor McDavid, 6-point night. Anything else you have to say about number 97? Because I feel like we're running out of things to say about this guy.
Well, I don't know if you can ever run out of things to say about greatness. And Connor McDavid's greatness is on display every single game he plays, or the potential for greatness is there for every game he plays. I make this joke, Jay, that, you know, Connor McDavid immediately becomes dangerous when his blades hit the ice. It doesn't matter if he's just jumping on the boards or wherever he is. That's how good he is. And when you consider, you know, the 600 assists and the number of games he's done, a 6-point game. I mean, he's up to 77 points on the season. Earlier in the year when he started the role, I thought that it would take him till game 50, Connor McDavid's game 50, to be leading the league in scoring. Now, this was game 47 for him. He's still 13 points behind Nikita Kucherov, but I'm not betting against Connor McDavid winning the Art Ross Trophy again. And certainly, you know, he's been a model of excellence. He's been a model of play that is exhilarating and exciting and pulls you right out of your seat. And in this run for the Edmonton Oilers now, he's been a model for play that is necessary if you want to win in the playoffs. So we can talk about all the brilliant offensive numbers, but Connor McDavid, in my view, and sitting playing against the Detroit Red Wings on Tuesday night, I think you're seeing a player developing and evolving into exactly what Steve Yzerman became for the Detroit Red Wings. 3 Stanley Cups later, I think that Connor McDavid would take that.
Steve Yzerman just wishes it wasn't against the team that he's now the GM of, but that's another story. Morgan Rielly, 5-game suspension. Greg, we asked you what you thought about the whole situation on yesterday's show. Curious to get your thoughts on the suspension itself. Do you feel it's fair?
I do think it's fair. And, you know, it fits right in the range. And certainly I thought that it was a very similar play to the David Perron cross-check and Artem Zub that got a 6-game suspension. So I thought it was similar. And I look at the range of penalty, and I think that where the Department of Player Safety landed, I think that gives you the sense of fairness. And if you go back and we think about this year, we think about Rasmus Anderson getting a 4-game suspension, Charlie McAvoy a 4-game suspension. I mentioned Perron, Brendan Gallagher a 5-game suspension, and now Morgan Rielly with a 5-game suspension. You know, plays where there was contact made with the head in different ways, the elbow, the cross-check by Morgan Rielly. But I also believe that the Department of Player Safety is also sending a message. I think they're raising the bar in terms of penalizing players, suspending players, because it's one thing to suspend a player for the act that he committed, but you're also trying to correct behavior and deter future behavior. By raising the number and raising that bar with respect to the harshness of the penalties, I think the Department of Player Safety is sending notice to players that what's going to be tolerated, and if you do cross the line, you're going to pay a pretty significant price.
I mean, you got to look for silver linings if you're the Leafs. Listen, you're missing Rielly, you're missing Tavares, you're missing Marner, and then you have a kid in Bobby McMann who wasn't even supposed to play on Tuesday night, end up getting a hat trick. It's a nice story.
It's a great story. You know, from what I understand, Sheldon Keefe came into the dressing room before the game and he said, "Next McMahon up." And 3 goals later, first hat trick of the season, first hat trick of his career. You know, one of the things that happens when you lose really good players, I think it really puts everybody to heighten awareness, to understanding that, boy, our margin for error is really, really low. So everybody now kind of dials in, focus is a little bit higher, concentration is a little bit finer. This was a great defensive effort by the entire team. And certainly when you're short the players that the Toronto Maple Leafs were against the St. Louis Blues, a St. Louis Blues team that has been playing very well,
yep.
I think it's a testimony to a really connected, cohesive defensive effort. And for Bobby McMann, a night he will never forget.
I have a friend who watches us in Victoria, says we don't talk about the Canucks enough, so let's start talking about the Canucks, Craig. First place in the entire National Hockey League. Who saw that coming at the beginning of the year? All their big guys have contributed to this. It's been incredible. Elias Lindholm's already fitting in great. There's so many players who have contributed, though, Craig. It's hard to pick an MVP. Who would you pick as the Canucks MVP to this point?
See, it's not hard for me. And you know, some people might raise their eyebrows, but it's Quinn Hughes. And I think from the opening game of the season right through to what he did in Chicago on Tuesday night has been a signal of the importance and the impact that Quinn Hughes has had. I see him as a Norris Trophy favorite, and I have him in my Hart Trophy conversation. I have him, Jay, in my top 5 for the Hart Trophy right now. And that's most valuable player in the league. And yes, JT Miller's been great, and Elias Pettersson has been great, and Thatcher Demko has been great. But I think Quinn Hughes has separated himself from that group, and he has been simply fantastic. And credit has to go to Patrick Allvin, too, because Quinn Hughes was already a superstar #1 defenseman, but the burden on him was on him and him alone. Trading for Roenick, signing Ian Cole, signing Carson Soucy, trading for Zadorov. I think there's a lot more support around Quinn Hughes that has allowed him to take his game to even a higher level.
And then the Canucks announcing on Tuesday that free agent Phil Kessel has made his way to Vancouver and will be working out in Abbotsford, presumably to eventually sign with the Canucks. This is so exciting. In your opinion, is he worth a flyer, Craig? Phil Kessel on the West Coast.
Phil the Thrill, of course he's worth a flyer. Here's something to keep in mind for everybody. Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin, and Rick Tocchet know Phil intimately as a person. Phil Kessel today isn't the same player that he was when he was in Pittsburgh winning those 2 Stanley Cups and being a fantastic playoff performer in helping them win those 2 Stanley Cups. But you're looking for a little bit of depth. You're looking for a player that understands the demands of Stanley Cup playoff hockey, going deep, keeping a certain amount of relaxation in your game, not getting too high, not getting too low. Having that type of personality, having that type of person with those experiences, I think really helps the Vancouver Canucks. And, you know, seeing where he goes, getting himself ramped up and getting ready to play, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I think this is a fantastic venture for the Vancouver Canucks.
I'm excited about it. I'm also excited later in the show, Craig's going to join us and answer one simple question. Is Brad Marchand a Hall of Famer? Don't answer it yet, Craig. That's later in the show. It's called a tease. But first, I should mention we have 2 more Canadian teams to tell you about after the break. We've got your Habs highlights. We've got your Sens highlights. Stay tuned. This is SportsCenter with Jay Onrait. We're brought to you by Harvard.